It had a really unique character. A lot of the people who ended up moving here were railroad workers that worked on the railroad, and they tended to live in small, modest homes. But there was kind of a sense of community here that was unique.
Alright, so we have another song here that's for Kiana, because Kiana listens, and she's nice, and she's my best friend, so.
The road was wiped out in last night's storm, so follow the signs to that alternate route.
The ivory-billed woodpecker was last seen in 1944 in the swamps of the southeast. Its range used to cover hundreds of miles from Florida to Texas and high into the States. We destroyed its habitat by draining the swamps, and the bird has never been seen since, until this week. Science.
So you have to start with a sense of respect and an expectation of intelligence among the people who are going to come upon your station and listen to it.
And I worked for in St. Louis called KDNA. It was something of a sister station to KBOO, and it was an underground radio station. It worked in such a way that if a disc jockey was playing a song or music on the air and somebody called and said, I'm with the Black Panther Party and I'd like to talk on the air, he'd say, well, let me wait till the record's over and I'll put you on. But it was also the type of station that if you were calling and you said, I was for the John Birch Society, they'd say, okay, let me wait till the song's over and I'll put you on. And because it listened to all viewpoints, it didn't just have a liberal audience. And that was especially threatening to
community. We have an opportunity to demonstrate what is possible when people work together. This is a place where we can really demonstrate through our own goodwill whether we really stand behind our own words.
I mean, the record was recorded somewhere else, but you're mixing it together in your music show. That's locally produced.
So that's 56 hours a week of local programming?
Yeah.
Yes.
7 days a week.
Make us multiply.
It really was diverse and inclusive from the beginning. There's now 11 languages on the station. When we watched the stuff at Pacifica, we partly were responding to that, but we saw even in the 70s and the early 80s problems of rigidification around having a very, I think, sense of professional elitism about who can make radio and who can't make radio. There are Salish Coast Aboriginal music programs, and there are also public affairs programs in French, Farsi, Cantonese, Mandarin. Well, I'm not sure who won on the Yugoslav thing because that was a huge issue for a while.
Have is an Ace Gang song, Flagpole Sitta, here we go.
I'm Amy Goodman, host of Democracy Now!, your daily grassroots global unembedded news hour. Thank you for listening to KSKQ 94.9, new home of Democracy Now!
The Media Access Project is somebody that we have worked with, at least has been in existence for almost 30 years and doing a lot of communications law and interpretation of FCC rulings and application. We also work with folks like the Prometheus Radio Project, which in previous incarnations were kind of pirate radio guys and now became kind of legit, so we work with them. We also work with Americans for Radio Diversity out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Make use of what we had to try to leverage political support for changing the way that radio is regulated. So we called a demonstration on the following Monday, about 3 days later, and we announced that we were going to go back on the air, and we were going to go back on the air in front of Benjamin Franklin's printing press, which was an 18th century symbol of freedom of speech and a symbol of the fact that the First Amendment is not really just about my right to talk to you or my right to stand on a street corner and talk, but it's about the right of citizens to have a meaningful place in the public dialogue.
And we were remarkably successful at getting ourselves on TV for like half a second with our signs and whatever. And then our opponents, almost invariably, were remarkably successful at getting on with Neil Lehrer the next day for 20 minutes and explaining why we were morons and why they were right. And at a certain point, a bunch of different activists came together and we said, well, wait a second, how can we expect the media to treat us fairly when the very corporations that we fight all the time are the owners of the media? You look at someone like General Electric, they make zillions of dollars every time that there's a war because they make these billion-dollar defense contracts. They're also the owners of the NBC television network, and so it's hardly surprising, when NBC will put out information that tells Americans that the rest of the world loves us every time we go and invade their countries. So it's sort of we came to the realization that there was going to be no way that we could really make a difference until we had at least a piece of the airwaves. None of us knew anything about radio. None of us had ever been on the radio before. None of us knew how to build radio.